Hi everyone, thanks for coming along. It's great to see so many of you here. My name is Erin and I am one of the recruiters here at Teach First, and I'm joined this evening by my colleague Carrie.
Hi everyone, I'm Carrie. I'm one of the university recruiters as well at Teach First. I'm also an ambassador of the programme. I taught as part of the 2015 cohort. We're also really lucky this evening to have another ambassador with us today, Charlotte, and she is going to tell us a bit more about her career and her journey later, but I just thought she might want to say a quick hello now, Charlotte.
Hello everybody, it's lovely to meet you. I'm Charlotte, I'm a 2013 ambassador from the North East.
Great, thank you. So, over the course of this presentation, you are going to find out more about who Teach First are, why we exist, and how we're working to build a fair education for all, and how you can kickstart your career whilst changing the lives of children who need it most. But obviously, it goes without saying that the next generation of teachers going into classrooms across England will be some of the most important teachers our country has ever seen. So I wanted to share with you a short clip of one of our partner schools, Bedford Academy, that is showing what life is like in a school during COVID, and it really highlights.
Back so soon.
Morning.
We're going to lock the doors.
Come on, you don't want to be late on your first day back.
Sorry.
Okay, who's happy to be back in school?
That's good. Is anyone feeling a little bit anxious?
He seems really concerned. Can you just keep an eye on him?
Alright, well done. Let's go from keeper again and let's see if we can do that better.
Go straight back to your tutor.
So I'm just calling to see if there's anything happening at home that we might need to be aware about.
Okay guys, so that's where we're going to finish today. Well done guys, excellent work.
Sir?
Get it off your chest.
So as that very short clip shows, education isn't fair, and the difference that you can make, you can alter the outcome for the lives of so many children. Education in the UK isn't fair. This little guy on screen is called Harry, and although his future should depend on his potential, on how hard he works, on what he wants to achieve, at the moment his future depends on where he lives, on his postcode. His life is already set in a certain direction, and that's not fair. A child's background should not affect their future, and yet a child from a disadvantaged background is less likely to get good GCSEs and go on to higher education, and is less likely to go into certain professions. We need to unlock the potential in all our children, not just some. If we don't, we fail the next generation. We fail children like Harry. It is a cycle that we are determined to help schools break because education isn't fair. But we wanted to share a few statistics with you that really put this into context and highlight the extent of educational inequality.
So our first statistic we're going to look at, this statistic is about how many children from the poorest postcodes in the country do not pass their maths GCSE. And that's a really shocking 2 in 5. So that's nearly 40% of pupils from the poorest postcodes that will not pass that maths GCSE. And nearly twice as many as those from the richest postcodes. Now, this is really important for 2 reasons. We know that GCSEs in maths and English are basic requirements for so many different career paths and options, whether that be further education or apprenticeships or other employment. And by not achieving these qualifications, so many doors are closed for these young people, so many opportunities taken away. But the other reason for me is more than just formal academic qualifications. Basic math skills are something that we use every day of our lives. Imagine going into a shop with £10 and not knowing if you can afford to buy the things you need to buy, not knowing how much change you can expect to get back. Imagine how isolating that would feel. By not equipping these young people with those essential skills, we're letting them down and preventing them from achieving their full potential. We also know that this situation has only worsened with the COVID-19 school closures. And we know that the learning gap for poorer pupils has widened since the school closures. And it's widened by an astonishing 46%. If we don't act now, this gap is just going to keep widening. These young people will fall further behind, and that is not acceptable. We need to act.
And as Carrie said, it's not acceptable, and we refuse to accept this. We refuse to accept that a child's future and their achievement is decided already. As you've seen from those statistics that Carrie shared, education inequality is one of the biggest challenges facing the UK today. And at Teach First, we are determined to solve it so that we can unlock the potential in all children and not just some. We do this in a number of different ways, but at the heart of it is our graduate training programme. We develop inspiring teachers and leaders who are building a fair education for all across society. Our 2-year salaried programme develops your teaching and leadership skills in the areas of greatest need, making a difference in the lives of children who need it most. Our programme is an opportunity to develop not only great teaching skills, but the transferable leadership skills such as communication, resilience, planning and organising, all those skills that are really highly valued by employers across all industries as well as schools. But we've told you about why you should do this and how important it is and the difference you'll be making. But I want to share with you a little bit about what is in it for you. This is an opportunity to work for an employer who has been ranked in the top 10 of the Times Top 100 graduate employers list for the past 13 years. Whilst working as a salaried teacher, you will get a fully funded postgraduate diploma in education and leadership. This internationally recognised qualification is worth double the credits of a traditional teacher training route and can be topped up to a master's in your 3rd year if you would like to at a reduced cost. Not only that, but you will have the support of mentors, university tutors and trained professional coaches from Teach First who will be with you every step of the way to make sure you're properly supported throughout the programme. From your teaching practice to your academic work to your well-being, they will be there to support you and make you the best teacher possible. After the 2 years on the programme, you will have developed amazing leadership skills that will set you up for success throughout your career. My personal favourite thing about the Teach First training programme is that after you've completed your 2 years, you will join a network of over 12,000 professionals committed to building a fair education across all industries, all of whom started their career journey at an event just like you, just like this one, although admittedly it may have been in person.
So your journey will start with the application process. So before you open that online application, you just need to make sure you're eligible. So this information is all on our website, so I'd encourage you to have a look at that as a starting point. And then you start with the online application form. Our process is competency-based. You'll start the form with some basic information about yourself, your academic qualifications. Then you'll go into those competency-based questions where you'll be able to demonstrate all the skills you've gained so far that will really set you up for being a fantastic teacher on the programme. And then finally, you will have a situational judgment test that allows you to kind of demonstrate how you'd respond to a few different scenarios that you'd face in school. A really important thing to flag at this point is that we have some fantastic recruitment officers who are ready to help you with your applications and support you through every step of the way. They get in touch with you once you've opened, and they can help you through that journey, and we really encourage you to chat to them. We do find that the best candidates always do, so keep an eye out for anything coming through from them and their guidance. If you're successful with the online form, the online application, you'll be invited to one of our online selection days, and you'll have an interview, again competency based, and it'll also give you a chance to ask any questions you might have. Then you'll take part in a group task that will enable us to see how you interact with other people and how you might problem solve some common situations you might face. And then finally you'll have a teaching episode, and you get some information about this so you can prepare in advance. That's something that some people say they're a bit nervous about, but always seem to enjoy the most of the day. And then if you're successful, you'll find out within 2 weeks if you've secured an offer to join the training programme. So I then wanted to chat you through what a journey on the programme might look like. And it's really important to know that everybody's journey on the programme is different. So you will get the tailored support and guidance that you need at every step of the way. But there are obviously some key milestones that everyone shares. So I just wanted to chat you through some of those now. So everything starts with our Summer Institute. In previous years, this has been a 5-week kind of intensive training where you learn all the skills you need to set you up ready for September. We do expect it's going to be really similar for 2021, but we are still ironing out some of the details. So keep an eye out for further information on that. For our 2020 cohort, you won't be surprised here, we had to move it online, and we did that really successfully so that all our fantastic teachers were still able to start in September, which was really great news. So then, come September, you start in school, and this is the same school you'll be in for the whole 2 years of the programme, and you are a real teacher with real responsibility for pupils and lessons, which is really, really exciting, but can be a bit nerve-wracking. So just to reassure you, there will be support every step of the way, like Erin mentioned before. And yes, so you do that for your first year with all that ongoing training, guidance and support that we offer. And then at the end of your first year, you gain QTS, which is Qualified Teacher Status, which means you get a nice pay rise as well in your second year. In the summer between your first and second year of the programme is your first opportunity to take part in our summer projects. These are exclusive internships for our trainees, and they run across a really wide range of sectors. And these are fantastic for exploring different paths and for developing your skills, whether you want to bring those back to continue on in the classroom after the programme or go on to something different, take on a new challenge as well. So really fantastic opportunities. Then, as I said, come September of your second year, you go back to the same school. And I absolutely loved my second year on the programme. It was one of my favourite years of teaching. By this point, you know your colleagues, you know your pupils, you know the community that you serve, and you've kind of got the basics under your belt. So you really start to see the impact that you can have and how those relationships with your pupils really enable them to thrive. And it's just a really, really fantastic year. So if you're going back to the same school. And then at the end of that year, you've completed your PGDE, and now you are kind of fully qualified with that academic qualification as well, and you become an ambassador. I've already gathered, we've got a couple of ambassadors already mentioned that an ambassador is just our term for somebody who's completed the programme and met all the necessary requirements. You are going to hear a little bit more about ambassadors now. So these are just a very small selection of our many, many ambassadors. And as you can see, we are based all across the country. So we've got James in the northeast, Sally in Yorkshire and Humber, Toby in the east of England, and Aaron in London. So just to touch on that briefly, because I know lots of people ask about this, we do place all over England. And when you apply, what you do is you rank the locations, your preferences and things like that this is also something you can chat about with your recruiter. So do look out for things, any information coming through from them. Now, as Erin's mentioned, our ambassadors have had huge successes in building a fairer education for all students. And just to pick out kind of one example, we've been placing trainees in London since 2003. And initially, kind of when we started, London was one of the worst performing areas in the country. And now London is the best performing area in the country. That change, that success is incredible and something that we're really, really proud to have been a part of. But we do need to replicate that elsewhere. Lots of times people think of inner city schools needing lots of support, but it's more than that. There are coastal, rural, suburban areas all across the country with children that are being left behind. We need to improve that. We need to kind of work on that as well. So for example, I taught in a coastal town in the northeast of England, about 20 minutes north of Newcastle, that was once really thriving. Lots of kind of people working in the coal mining industry, the fishing industry. Obviously, with the massive decline in those industries, so many families are now facing third or fourth generation unemployment and all the challenges that come with that. So we need, you know, that wherever you work, wherever you are placed with Teach First, you're going somewhere that you can, which is an incredible thing to be able to say. But as Erin mentioned, you also have incredible career development and skill development on the programme. And just to pick out Aaron there from the map, he studied maths and economics at university, and he was sure that his future lay working in the city. But he did want to take on the challenge and the opportunity of the training programme first. And it didn't take even his full first year until he realised that the classroom was definitely where his heart was. He's done incredibly well, you know, with the support and the development on the programme. And he is now an assistant principal at one of our partner academies in London. So doing really, really well. So as I said, we're really lucky that we have our ambassador Charlotte with us today. And I'm going to hopefully hand over to her now to tell you a little bit more about her journey on the programme. Charlotte, over to you.
Hi, thanks. I'm also a Northeasterner. So I will champion the Northeast and the need for people to come to coastal regions because we really need you, really, 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 really need you. So I'm Charlotte. I did the programme in 2013. And much like you guys, I was in my final year. I didn't really know what I wanted to do, but I knew I wanted to make a difference and I wanted to do a graduate programme. And so I applied to Teach First. It gave me a broad range of skills and kept my options open. So I was placed in Middlesbrough, which is in the northeast of England, and I was placed on the outskirts next to the docks. So I was actually placed in Ormsby, and I had to look that up on a map. And moved up to the northeast and did the Summer Institute, met the most amazing people who I am still really, really close with. And I got married last November, and it was dubbed the Teach First reunion because it was pretty much Summer Institute all over again. And you will meet people who will change your life and inspire you forever. And so I started to school in Middlesbrough, and I taught MFL there for the first 2 years and got involved in quite a few other things that were going on in school. The school was very challenging. It was in the most deprived community in England, so it was very challenging at that point. And the students really, really needed inspiring. So I was able to make use of lots of the different Teach First partners, so the Brilliant Club and different innovation organisations that exist within Teach First, and started to use them to sort of enhance my teaching. And fell in love with the school, fell in love with the kids, decided I would stay after my 2 years. So after my 2 years, I stayed. I was made head of department. So I was head of department in my 3rd year and worked with Teach First trainees and other staff to really raise that department. And so when I started the school, 78% of our children arrived not secondary ready. So there was real learning needs there, and the MFL results were appalling. And at the end of my 3rd year, we'd managed to get them to national average, which isn't amazing. We had still places to go. We needed to be high. But bearing in mind that 78% of the kids were arriving not secondary ready, that felt like an achievement. So we did that. And then we started to look further afield. So what else was impinging on the student? It wasn't just quality of teaching, but it was what else was going on in the community. And that really, really mattered. And so I started to reach out to the Teach First network. And we have a saying in the Northeast, shy bairns getting out. So literally ask somebody in the Teach First network, no matter how important they are, and they usually will give you stuff. So I remember emailing a fairly prominent CEO, being, I need £10,000, I need to take the children to London. I've never been on a train. And he went back, we can't have 10,000, how about 5? Yeah, that will do. So the Teach First network are helpful. So I used them for things like that, but equally I was able to go to Israel and have a look at what they were doing with their community in Israel. I went to Austria and had a look at their ambassador movement and how they were making a huge amount of impact. I was able to have phone conversations with people who were doing Teach First New Zealand and work out how they were working with their Maori community to really get a sense of what else was going on in the world, which was supporting community development and then enhancing student development as a result. Also nationally, so with schools in London and things. And so whilst I was still head of MFL in my year, set up some parental engagement work and started to look at how we could reach out to the community and really sort of bring the community up. And we started to see real traction with that, which was lovely. So at the end of my 4th year, I was an associate vice principal, and which basically means like you're attached to the SLT, but you're a baby trainee. So you're given some responsibility, but also a lot of mentoring. So did that for a year and then was made full assistant principal at the end of that 4th year, responsible for what I termed anything that was soft and fluffy. But by that, I mean not teaching and learning. So I was responsible for all the community stuff, for safeguarding, for ensuring children's pastoral development, and anything that wasn't what's happening in the lesson, or exclusions, because I'm a little bit of soft touch, which was important for pastoral care. So I stayed there for 7 years and I adored the children, but after 7 years, I needed to see what else was going on and work out what else was going on in schools. So I applied to Skills Builder, which is a Teach First innovation program. And I'm sorry, I talk really quickly, so I will answer questions afterwards. But it's a Skills Builder is a Teach First innovation program, which means it's a project that was set up by Teach First ambassadors and incubated to become successful. And they support senior leaderships to embed effective skills teaching and effective pastoral care and support within schools. So now I am working with 40 senior leadership teams across the Northeast, supporting them to develop their offer and their strategic planning. And I fully intend to go back into the classroom at some point, but this is giving me an opportunity to work with some really inspiring people and really challenge me to develop that leadership and use those skills that I've learned within school in a different context. And then alongside that, I lead co-lead the Teach First Policy Network, which is a group of ambassadors who bring together people in the Northeast to discuss policy development and what we're going to do with those. And I'm tentatively working with the people actually who I met in SI to look at setting up a free school in the Northeast, which would emulate some of the things that were going on. But I have talked plenty about me, and I think the thing that sums up for me is another student and it's their journey. And I always feel a bit wrong for sharing their story because really it should come from them. But Connor, and every teacher will have one, but my Connor, and Connor sticks in my mind. So Connor, I first met when I joined school, and first met Connor in the playground once he'd had a fight and I was trying to calm him down. And speaking to Connor, he has 3 older brothers, all of whom had been in prison. Dad was in prison, it was him and mum at home. And Connor had a whole lot of care and a whole lot of nurturing, and the number of cups of tea I must have had with his mum, who I became first name basis with, and she used to call me Chickadee, were innumerable. But we nurtured Connor through. Connor had been excluded in primary school 47 times, which is a huge amount, and was set for permanent exclusion. And through a lot of nurture, a lot of community work, we took him to London, we showed him a train, we really worked on his personal development skills and showed him that actually there was an alternative and he wasn't written off just because of where he came from and what was going on. And he wanted to be a chef in the Navy, and we worked really extensively with that. And he actually became head boy. He was incredible head boy because he was able to really, really understand what was going on. He really cared about the community, and the community really cared about him as well because he was their success and he was going somewhere. And 3 weeks ago, I saw him in Sainsbury's, as you do, and he was doing his mum's shopping. He's still living with his mum when he's not in the Navy cooking, because he managed to become a chef with the Navy. He's traveled the world. He was so happy. He was able to tell me about all these things. He told me he's a passport, and he's able to support his mum. He's paid off her debt. And he was so proud of himself. And I could tell you stories about all of them, but I'm aware I need to stop talking. So I could tell you about Zoe, whose mum didn't speak a word of English, and now she's studying at Durham. And I could tell you about Geremiu, who came from Ethiopia, who lived in Eritrea, who came across via Amsterdam on his own on a plane, and came to our school and didn't speak a word of English, and is one of the most eloquent, successful young men who now runs a community project for homeless people. Like, they're amazing, and you get to be part of their story. And the most important thing is you give them a sense of purpose, and you give them a sense that they have a place in the world and they're going somewhere, and you can give that to them, because sometimes they arrive in your classroom a little bit lost. And through what we do, we give them a sense of, you have a place, you have a purpose, and you're off. And we can be part of that journey. And then it's lovely when you see them as a grown-up, even if it makes you feel very old. And they say, "Whoa, miss, what happened to you?" And yeah, I know, tell me about it. But they're lovely, and you fall in love with them. And I will quite happily answer any questions. But that is my waffle over.
Thank you, Charlotte. It was so lovely to hear about your experiences. I think for me, the fact that not only were you able to kind of build up your leadership skills and progress, but also kind of that network that we talked about. But I think at the heart of it, what comes through is the difference that you made, not just to one child's life, but to so many. And that is the same for all of our alumni, which I'm actually going to come on to now. So our programme, as we've talked about, is a 2-year commitment, but over half of our ambassadors continue teaching in schools, many progressing, like Charlotte did, into leadership positions. And we do actively encourage and support our trainees to take up leadership positions after the programme. So it's not a surprise to us at all that we have amazing ambassadors like Charlotte, and that our teachers are 7 times more likely to be in senior leadership positions with other routes into teaching. But I wanted to pick out one number on this slide that just I'm so incredibly proud of. Of our ambassadors, 83 are head teachers, and this number grows year on year. For me, Teach First was established 17 years ago. So in 17 years, 83 people have not only trained as teachers, but qualified, developed as leaders, and taken on charge of a school. I don't know about you guys, but when I was at school, my head teachers were very old. So to have those people making a difference in the community is amazing. And I talked about kind of having done presentations like this, admittedly in person, last year that number was in the 60s, and year on year that growing number. And those people, and that, you know, over 2,000 people in school leadership positions, those people are not just making a difference in their own career and their own progression, but they're also making a difference on individual children, on schools, but as Charlotte talked about there, on communities. And that's where we're exceptionally proud of our ambassador community. But educational inequality needs everyone across the whole of society to be focused on this problem. And that's why we need people working from the inside in classrooms out, but we also need amazing people working from the outside in. We need to unlock the potential in all children, not just some, and schools and teachers cannot do this alone. They need support, and the system needs to change. And that's why our ambassador network is so powerful, because not only does it contain amazing teachers and leaders, but also civil servants, journalists, charity CEOs, business leaders, and they work to connect schools to a powerful community of support. So I'm actually going to pick out Cyrus here, who's on this slide. Cyrus did one of our summer projects, and after his 2 years on the programme, he went on to Accenture and progressed to management level, but he's still continuing to make a difference from outside the classroom. He's a school governor, he manages the Teach First Ambassador Network at Accenture, but he also works with teachers to offer students free business inspiration days at Accenture. So he is making that difference from outside in. And then I'd like to talk about a friend of mine called Emmanuel. So Emmanuel spent some time growing up in care and then went on to do the training programme and noticed that the provision for children in care within education hadn't changed and hadn't grown in the way that it should have done. Through the support of Teach First and with a number of other ambassadors, Emmanuel has set up his own charity called the Lighthouse Foundation, which works on improving the attainment of children in foster care. And the stuff that Emmanuelle has done already is just absolutely amazing. And it goes without saying that we can't do this alone, and we do need our ambassadors in different industries. And we get those ambassadors in those industries because of the support of our corporate partners. These are just a few of our corporate partners, and they work with us not only because they want to help us build a fair education for all, because they're so passionate about making a change in society, but also because they know that Teach First trainees and ambassadors are excellent leaders. And they know that if they have a Teach First ambassador in their organisation, they will have an individual who's exceptionally resilient, who's extremely dedicated, who is confident, who is organised, and has real humility, respect, and empathy. Deloitte actually did an internal study and found that Teach First ambassadors who applied to Deloitte actually progressed quicker than those who applied at the same time and level. And that really doesn't surprise us. So throughout this presentation, you've heard about our corporate partners, you've heard about the leadership skills you'll gain, you've heard about why it's so important for you to join this movement of leaders. But I wanted to end by handing over to one of our ambassadors who talks about the impact that you can make on the life of one child. So I'm going to hand over to Abby now, who talks about the difference she made to just one child's life.
In Hull, so I grew up seeing my mum working really hard, my nan having her own business. So I grew up seeing my mum working really hard. Even though my dad was far away in Bristol, I had these two women that worked really, really hard and provided in like quite a challenging circumstance, and that inspired me. I guess my key motivator was my mum, and I think because growing up in Hull with just her as a single parent and watching her from when I was really young work a day job and then at night go out, and she trained as a youth worker counsellor, and she'd go out on the estates in Hull and just work all night doing that. So that motivated me then to go to uni and work hard. And some kids that I see day in day out don't have anyone that's doing that for them. So within the first month of working at school, I had one student and she never did her homework. One day I had a conversation with her and I was like, what can we do to get you to do your homework? And she's like, if I'm honest, miss, can't I just stay after the lesson and do it then? So we set up homework club, and every week after the lesson she'd stay and do her homework there and then, but occasionally she'd just pipe up with the odd question. And I knew she didn't have a mum that was around, and I was realising actually more and more just having a female working role model in front of her was probably opening her eyes to a lot of things. And then after a few months she just said to me, will you make me a promise? Will you stay here until I finish school? And I was like, you mean working here? She was like, yeah. She was like, 4 more years, do you reckon you can do that? And I was like, yeah, I could try that. And you realise then, even though I see her 4 hours a week, I'm probably the most stable thing in that girl's life.
The last thing I would say to you, if I were never to see you again, would be thank you for making me me.
So you saw in that really lovely video the huge difference that one teacher made to just one child, and how amazing that is. But something we're so proud of and really amazing to say is that our teachers on the training programme have helped over 1 million children reach their full potential, which is incredible. But we know that there is still more to do, especially with the devastating impact of the COVID school closures. So you can help us reach even more children. You can be the reason that a child's future is based on their potential, not their postcode. We are currently receiving a really high number of applications. We've already closed some subjects for 2021. We do offer places on a first come, first served basis. So subjects and areas will close as they fill. So apply now to secure your future, and apply now to join our most important cohort to date.
So we've come to the end of our presentation, but we do have some time for some questions which you guys have been putting in the Q&A function. So Sasha will ask us some questions and we'll hopefully be able to answer them, but just to be aware, if we don't get to your questions today, don't worry, because your recruiter will be in touch over the next few days. We'll be answering the more broad questions. If you have any questions about your individual circumstances, I'd recommend waiting for that email from your recruiter and they'll be in touch.
Hi everyone, thank you so much for asking your questions throughout. Some really good questions on there. So the first one I'm going to ask, what type of candidate is ideal for the Teach First training programme?
So I can answer that one. So at Teach First, we know that no child responds to the same thing as the next child. Every child is different and every person is different, and we want a whole variety of varied teachers in our classrooms. So with that, we look for a series of competencies, and it is a competency-based application and selection day. So all our competencies are available on our website, and we look for people who can really demonstrate that passion for Teach First, for making a difference, humility, respect, empathy. And the biggest one, I think, has to be that ability to self-reflect and take on board feedback, want to grow and develop. And all our competencies are available on our website.
Thank you, Erin. So another one from me that we've just had from Verity. I was really interested in Charlotte's experiences of having had a lot of scope for developing personal connections with the families of the students. I was just wondering how much scope there is to develop a specific pastoral care type role within the 2-year programme, or whether this sort of role is something that you progress onto after the first 2 years.
Do you want me to go?
Charlotte,
Yeah, so I think it depends on the school, is the first thing, because every school will do pastoral care differently. In terms of the first 2 years, it's usually a focus on your practice. There'll be an essay on community though, and how the community works, which will be sort of you starting to look at how the community works in your school, and opportunities to start to develop that as you feel comfortable. And you'll be given opportunities, and there'll be opportunities which will be there, and you'll think, yeah, okay, and as you develop and become more comfortable, you get more scope. So I suppose in my first few years, I would do things like, I'm really worried about this kid in my tutor group. Can I come along on an attendance visit with you and have a look at what you do? And then I would get a sense of what was going on. Or I would say, that school over there has adult learning classes for parents. I want to find out how to do that. So I'd go and look at that and then bring that back and say to people, can we do this? Is this something? And then by the time I was in a leadership position, I was able to say, actually, this is what we're doing, end of discussion, let's move on. And so that gives you a bit more flexibility. So yeah, I think it's something that you can start, develop and keep going, and kids talk to you inevitably. And so a huge part of the role is pastoral. You are always going to have a child who says, Miss, can I do a quick word? Or hangs around in your classroom over break time and sends you an email at 9 o'clock on Friday to say, thanks for this week. And you think, really? And so it is a huge part of the job. And as you stay in a school, it develops more.
Thank you, Charlotte. So I think we've got time for a few more. So this one's probably more aimed at Erin or Carrie. How do we kind of choose where people are going to be based in the UK for our programme?
So I'm happy to take this one. So as I said very briefly in the presentation, when you apply, you rank your preferences. If you have extenuating circumstances, care responsibilities, some people join the program and they have children, which are taken into consideration as far as possible. So your preferences are taken into consideration, taken into account. But obviously we do ask you to be as flexible as you can be, because, as we've talked about, the one thing you sure of is that wherever you're placed, you're going to be making a really big difference. So some subjects and areas, as we said, might fill more quickly. So it's just about being flexible and knowing that you're going to be doing something really, really important. But we do take preferences into account, but it comes down to very big, lots of things to consider, I think. I don't know if you want to add anything to that, Erin.
I think that's exactly it. We place in the areas of greatest need where you can make the greatest impact. And whilst we take your preferences into account, we use the information you give us as well to really inform that decision. What I find quite interesting when I speak to our ambassadors is that often we'll hear them say, I didn't know why I was placed at this school until I got there. And then actually 3 months in, it just made sense as to why I was there, and it felt like it was the perfect fit for me. And that's always just so amazing to hear, because we do have a team of people that place our trainees. So when they say that, it just reinforces that we do the right thing for our trainees, and there is a school they're placed in.
Thank you both. I think we've got time for one more. So somebody has asked whether Teach First would support those who wanted to teach for A-levels at sixth forms and colleges.
Yes, so I can take this, and Charlotte, feel free to chip in if you do have any kind of additional context. So anyone who is teaching secondary, some of our secondary schools that we do place in do have sixth form provision. And so you may kind of get the opportunity to teach sixth form, but you are qualified to do so, and it's all about building up your experience. So again, and that's where it's that tailored matching process. If that's something you're really interested in at this stage of offer, you can fill that information in on a form that you create. That way we will keep that in mind with our preferences, and you can build that up so that actually, for example, if you are a science teacher, you've got a physics specialism, you may want to really teach that physics A-level and share that passion. So there's options to do that there as well.
Yeah, I suppose I was placed in a school that didn't have a sixth form, didn't do A-levels. I had put in my form that I was interested in teaching primary though, and there was primary provision that I was sent down to teach primary. So I would second that definitely happens. And I've got a friend who was placed in a school where he said he wanted to teach physics, taught general science, but taught physics at A-level. And so, yeah, I would second that. And I have also taught A-level, even though I didn't train initially in A-level, because you're still qualified to do so that. And I have since then been loaned out to another school and taught their A-level provision and felt perfectly happy doing so.
Thank you, everyone. We do still have some questions coming through, but I do think we might have run out of time now. But like Erin has said, your university recruiter will be in touch within the next few days, and any unanswered questions, you'll have a chance to ask them then.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you again for joining us. Thank you, Charlotte, for giving us some of your evening to tell your stories. I know that I really enjoyed hearing them, and it was great to kind of have you share that. As Carrie has talked about, because of the high volume of applications we've already received, certain subjects have already closed. For example, primary, early years and history have already closed due to the high volume of applications. So we really would encourage you to get your application in sooner rather than later. Your recruiters will be in touch over the next few days to be able to answer any other questions you do have. So please do look out for that email. And thank you for joining us, and we look forward to seeing your application soon.